Those of you who have observed my sartorial choices when recording my various YouTube episodes will no doubt have noticed that I've worn this particular t-shirt on many an occasion, at least I think 2 or 3 times. Now, you might ask why. Well, let me tell you, this t-shirt comes from Berlin, from what was East Berlin then. And for those of you who've been to Germany will notice this is the traffic light. The standing man, red, and on the back of the t-shirt, which you have also seen, is the green man walking. So when I wear this t-shirt with the red man on, it means that I'm not in an optimistic mood. I might even say I'm in a pessimistic mood. And when I wear a t-shirt with the green man walking, it means I'm in a more cheerful or hopeful mood. So today, it's the red man standing, not in Berlin, not in Germany, but in Lebanon. So welcome to Intuitive Reactions, the MENA and Gulf regions, and this is number 5. I said I would say a few words about Lebanon today, and basically it's my deep concern and worry about what is happening in the country. And this worry, this concern was exacerbated only in the last few days when there were 2 suicides that were committed in different parts of the country. The one that grabbed the headlines or the attentions was the one that happened in Hamra in central Beirut, when a man basically committed suicide, killed himself, and left a note on which he said that he does not have a criminal record, therefore he did not commit suicide because he was fleeing justice. And he said he was hungry. Can you imagine this in 2020, in the 21st century? In a country like Lebanon that was previously the little Switzerland, the little Paris, the little France? Yes, the man was hungry and he was driven to suicide. Another one happened in Sidon, where another man, a younger man, killed himself because he could no longer pay for the needs of his family. Now, the one in Hamra in central Beirut that grabbed the headlines, the man also left a note in which he said in Arabic, "Ana mish kafir," which means in English, I'm not a heretic, I'm not a blasphemer, I'm not an infidel. And some people have connected that to a poem by Ziad Rahbani, a singer and songwriter, in which he says that I'm not a heretic. He says, I'm trying to translate it, he said, I'm not a blasphemer. Hunger is blasphemy. And this basically is the reality of Lebanon today, from Beirut to Sidon. And perhaps it reminded me also that in 2019, there was another case of self-immolation that actually reminded me then of what started the Arab Springs in Tunisia with Bouazizi, a self-immolation by another Lebanese, George Zreh, who killed himself, who burnt himself alive because he could no longer meet the tuition fees, the school fees of his children. So today, this is Lebanon. Lebanon caught up with some sort of a coronavirus that decidedly they are handling better. The health authorities are handling better than in many other countries, and for that I'm grateful. But also a Lebanon whose economy is in meltdown, whose currency has devalued considerably compared with the dollar. We're talking about 8,000 to 9,000 liras to the dollar. a country that is unable to negotiate with the IMF and with the financial authorities because they are unwilling to do the reforms, the structural reforms that are part and parcel of any such financial assistance. The Gulf countries have for the moment turned their backs on Lebanon. And so it is really this land of the cedars, as we used to call it years ago. There are fewer cedars these days on the mountains. This country is in a real bind. It's in a real pickle. And we're talking of human beings. We're talking of men, of women, of children who are running out of food, who are hungry, who are running out of medicine, who are unable to pay for their daily needs. The country is running out of wheat, so no bread. It is a difficult situation. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pontificate as to why this has happened, but I will leave you with 3 thoughts today for you to mull over and see whether it makes sense to you or not. Why are we in where we are in Lebanon today? I mean, this country has survived a civil war from 75 till 90, 1975, 1990. It has survived many other challenges, and yet it looks very much heading toward a failed state. Levels of poverty rampant, no money, no hopes. Well, the future is dim. The red man standing. The first question I would ask, which makes a huge difference, but it's one that is almost unsolvable, unresolvable. How do you handle it? How do you deal with it? Is who rules? Who runs Lebanon? Is it the central government? The prime minister is a figurehead. I don't think he has much authority. I don't think he has much power. I don't think he has much say in what happens in the country. So who runs the country? Is it the geriatric president himself? Is it the prime minister? I didn't think so. Many Lebanese would tell you whether they are pro or against the different militias, would tell you that pretty much the one militia, the one power that decides what happens in Lebanon, who rules Lebanon, what government is formed, how does it act, how does it react versus any of the challenges, is the party of God. And the question now is, 1, who rules Lebanon? I said it's an unresolvable, difficult question to ask, but one that must be asked at least in an analytical sense. The second point I'd make is that we no longer have now the poor, the middle class, and the rich. Yes, there are still some people who are rich and who are managing to live quite comfortably despite all the odds and all the challenges, but the middle class has almost disappeared. The poor have become poorer. Look at the poverty rates in the country. And the political alignments that used to go with those classes no longer exists. It's all, to use a word that we have used recently in the UK, it's all shambolic. So those distinctions that used to be classifications have disappeared. So that's my second point. My third point today about Lebanon is that there is now a contrast, a divergence, a chasm between what is for the common good and what are personal considerations in the country. The sense of we are for a country and for a common good, for the popular need, no longer holds much sway, and it is each for his own and her own. And when you have that increasingly widening disparity between what is national, what is common, and what is personal, then the situation becomes even more dramatic. Those are just 3 thoughts I'd leave with you. But I'd leave with you another thought. Lebanon, to use and sorry to bring religion into this a little bit, but to use an expression by Pope John Paul II, he said Lebanon is a message, and that message is being torn apart. When will the so-called political leaders, the so-called rulers, the so-called decision makers, the so-called policy makers realize that when there is no Lebanon as we know it, they will also be losers. All the Lebanese will be losers. And you know what? The whole region will also be a loser. So I am not too hopeful today. And I really, really hope that there will be a consciousness of the challenges ahead, and that there will be people who will be able to right this wrong. Otherwise, Lebanon is heading in one direction only, and you know what is at the end of that direction? A very steep cliff. It is hard for me to say this and to try and tone down my language, but I am concerned, and I solicit your thoughts on this YouTube as well. Take care and all the best.